Beloveds, I knew this was going to happen. I knew eventually when we got into a bigger space, the shy folks would like migrate to the back. I see you shy people. One of these days I'm going to have you come move forward, but I'm going to leave you alone today. I want to share a story from my childhood. My mom is in the room, so Mom, don't take it personally. So when I was about 12 or so, I don't know what I did, but I was about to get the belt, which was a thing, right? Like for those of us who got spanked growing up, it was a thing. And I literally have no idea what I did. But I remember sitting there and my mom was like, go get the belt. And I was like, about to get up, go get the belt, because that's what you do. And then I looked at her. Now my dad was not home, which gave me all kinds of bravado. I looked at her and I was like, why would I do that? You want me to go get the thing you're about to hit me with? Yeah, I'm not going to get the belt. I'm not going to go. And we looked at each other. I mean, saying it out loud, we both heard the ridiculousness in the request, and we both burst into laughter. And I never got the belt again. But I share this story because there's this thing that we do that I, shared with you earlier in this series, that the only thing I have found in my own journey, in my own discovery, in my own discussions with many of you, looking at the world and my studies, the only thing I found at the root of all suffering is misbelief. And that these beliefs, these ideas, these concepts that we inherit often, that have been handed to us often, these ways of being that began as an idea, like we should hit children with belts. Somebody had the idea somewhere way back when, and then we all decided to believe it. And that this simple thing of belief can create so much hurt. Individually, collectively, societally, culturally, globally, can create so much good. And it all starts with a belief, with a thought, with an idea. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, Our Teaching, said, in our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. He started that whole sentence with, in our ignorance of truth. And the ignorance of truth is what makes possible the misuse of power. And it's in this ignorance that all conditions of suffering arise. Is that crazy? Does anybody else find that crazy? Like when you really think about it, I want you to think about right now, you two beloveds online, some suffering, your own societies, just pick a suffering. Apathy? Yes. Any one you pick, I want you to take a moment and think about, what is the idea? What is the belief that makes this suffering possible? I was like, somebody has their phone on, bless you. Yes. So think about poverty. That's one of the sufferings, right? The fact that there are children who starve to death in epidemic numbers every day on this planet. Bananas that happens, right? Bananas that happens. And there is a belief, a collective belief, that there is not enough. There are not enough resources for everybody on the planet. And yet the fact is there is plenty. The fact there is plenty of food on the planet for everybody to have what they need. That's the fact. Except there's this belief that so many of us have chosen to believe, we're handed, we came by it honestly, that there's not enough. And that idea is the root cause of poverty. Wild to me. It is wild to me that this is what allows for the kind of suffering that you and I have experienced, that many experiences on the planet. But if we give ourselves the time and the inclination to follow that condition, that circumstance, to its root, every single time you will find a misbelief, an untruth. And these untruths, in my consciousness, in your consciousness, are what weave the fabric of life itself. That is the nature of the law of creation. Is that everything that comes into manifest form must first begin with consciousness. So we can travel back from any set of circumstances to something going on in consciousness, mine and yours, our ancestors. But the good news is, we are conscious creators right now on this planet who have been given this gift of being one of those threads in the manifest reality, and which means you and I have impact on the one life, on the one tapestry that we happen to be alive in right now. But it also means that we get to take responsibility for what's going on in consciousness. We get to do the labor, we get to do the work, the spiritual practice, the spiritual maturing and growing, to understand how my thread is impacting the whole tapestry. And how that tapestry is impacting me. Because it is always so. Because you are not alone. There is no belonging outside of this one life. There is no possibility that you have no impact. There is no possibility that you're not impacted. But as conscious change shapers, like we talked about last week, we can begin to consciously be in relationship to the wholeness that we belong to. You get to decide, like Mom and I decided in that moment, like, this is effing ridiculous. Not doing it. So silly. And it was simply a choice to think something else. It was simply a choice to go, that's dumb. That's really dumb. I don't know who came up with it, but I'm not doing it. And this really epic idea of oneness and this epic idea of spiritual laws and the law of attraction and the law of resonance and the law of correspondence, all of these spiritual laws and principles are meaningless if we can't bring them down here into our lived experience. If we can't make use of these spiritual truths. If you and I can't begin to look at what is actually my belief, what actually am I believing about life, about belonging, What am I believing about the impact of this one life on me? One of the myths, collective myths, along with there's not enough, which is one of the doozies, is that it's always been this way, it's always going to be this way, and there's nothing we can do about it. Anybody else fall into that one sometimes? It's just like this. It's just, there's a word in Italian, così. It's like this. I got nothing. And this is a collective belief. And when you and I, as part of the collective, begin to consciously shape our own beliefs, we then consciously shape the thread in the tapestry that we have been gifted. This thing called life that you and I have been gifted with, this thread, the privilege of being one of the threads in this tapestry, comes with responsibility. Because you are not alone. You are not alone in this one life. And the greatest power, Ernest Holmes says, the greatest power there is in the universe is this thing called God, this thing called love, this thing called spirit, this thing called the divine, whatever you would like to call it. And that you and I can make use of it. And we often misuse it because of ignorance. Not because there are bad humans. I had a discussion yesterday with the Prac 2 students about the people we would like to condemn. Anybody got a list of folks you condemn? Yeah. Yes, and you can tell the truth. It's okay. You are not alone. And got to talking about the nature of the misuse of power, the nature of doing harm, and that every single one of those behaviors, of those choices, of those activities is rooted in ignorance, is rooted in an unconscious use of power, is rooted in a misunderstanding, a lie. So when you think about it, in my humble opinion, when you become aware that you have access to the greatest power in the universe, that you, as a conscious shaper of reality, you as a thread in the tapestry of life, when you understand and become aware that you have something to do, you have an impact on this greater whole, and you can do so using spiritual practice, I'm thinking that's exciting. I'm thinking like, wait a minute, that myth that it's always been like this and there's nothing I can do about it, humans just suck, becomes really easy to let go of. This idea that I'm too small and I can't make a difference also becomes clearly untrue with the understanding of your place, your belonging to the whole. It also, in my humble opinion, maybe should inspire you and I to get busy with becoming more conscious of truth, to get busy with undoing, divesting ourselves from misunderstandings and lies. And we don't even have to look far. You and I have things going on in our lives right now that are a result of ignorance. Right now, there is something going on in your life, in your family, in your community, in your neighborhood, in your city, that is a result of a misunderstanding, of a myth. I know it to be true because you and I in this room right now share the same city of Albuquerque, and we are one of the poorest, most impoverished cities in the country. States in the United States. So the evidence is all around. Which means, okay, this is information. The use of the creative principle, the use of the co-creative process means something is going down in consciousness that is resulting in this crappy set of circumstances, these conditions of suffering, and I have a role to play in it. And I can begin with wielding the greatest power I have access to. The very power of conscious co-creation. The very power of conscious shaping of this reality that you and I shared together, this one life. And allowing yourself to step into that power. Allowing yourself the permission to know yourself as someone who can wield spiritual power. Someone who could dare to create their own lives. Someone who could consciously take their thread and weave it in the most inspired, beneficial way you can think of. Understanding your impact on the whole. Often in spiritual teachings like ours, the New Thought community, especially communities that make use of metaphysics like ours, it can get really, really solo. It can get really, really focused on, but how am I going to get mine? How am I going to use prayer to make my life better, my health better? And often loses the context of the whole. And what's interesting about that is it's actually not possible to lose the context. The whole is the whole is the whole. The one life is the one life is the one life, whether you choose to consciously participate in it or not. But whoa, what happens when you and I choose to consciously participate in the wholeness of life? To celebrate the privilege and the gifting of being one of these threads. Whoa, what happens? Imagine the belief that you and I could get together and seed into this tapestry, to weave into this tapestry. Beliefs that support the well-being of all life. When you and I collectively get together and weave into our tapestries, our shared tapestry, more beauty, more abundance, more joy. This is the power you and I wield as conscious co-creators in collective spiritual community. Those very same beliefs and ideas and thoughts that have created BS can simply be created anew. That is what we are here to do. Go forth anew into creation. Go forth anew into creation. Who do you think that sacred text was talking about? You, me. Go forth anew. Not go forth and just keep doing the same old stuff. Go forth anew. I want to share from Dr. Yasmin Sadullah from Radical Dharma. We are experimenting with new strategies for survival. Their efficacy is necessarily not reflected in dominant culture. And yet, throughout history, we hear stories of folks refusing competition and daring to walk together to another rhythm. The fact that this bluesy, fugitive rhythm does not work in this world is proof of its success. We just have to remember that we are not alone in this journey. It is an audacious, radical, counterculture thing I am asking you to do. And if it feels like you're going against the grain, then you're getting it right. If it feels audacious to walk in the world and see the result of misunderstanding, mistruth, lies, myths, and to decide that you wield the spiritual power to plant something new into this garden of creation. It is radical. It is radical to declare yourself a spiritual being living a spiritual life. To believe without any doubt, with profound faith, that you are part of a greater whole on purpose. And that you matter, that you have impact, and that you are impacted, and allow yourself grace to be impacted. Because we are truly in this together, which means those misbeliefs, those misunderstandings, those lies impact some of us differently, depending where our social identities lie. Which is actually one of my favorite things about teaching spiritual law, because it gives you and I agency to be like, oh, that is BS. And there's something I can do about that in my very own consciousness. I can simply be counterculture and step away from that untruth. I can declare myself superpowered in the face of cultural myths that would have me lacking, that would have me other. And I get to recognize that the misuse of power is simply rooted in ignorance. I don't have to believe the hype. I don't have to participate in the hype. I can choose to be a place where more love shows up. I can choose to get my own vibrational field resonating and radiating good. I can choose to be so faithfully connected to the truth of who I am as a divine empowered being that nothing in this circumstance is in my way. That is how powerful this spiritual life can be. But it is also why it is so important to understand that you are not alone. Never have been, never will be. You are always impacting the whole. You will always be impacted by the whole. There is no other possibility. So grounding yourself in that truth, allow it to inform your lived life. Allow it to inform whatever stories or misbeliefs are running around in your consciousness. From Free Play, Stephen Nachmanovich, that's his name, says that we are neither spectators nor victims. And I would say we have probably participated in spectating. We have probably participated in being a bystander, not speaking up, letting some BS go on right in our view. Yes, I know I have. Right? I think about it sometimes in the silliest little things. Walking down the street and seeing garbage that I could have picked up. I could have picked that up. I didn't. So we participated in being spectators, yes? Have we been victimized? Anybody? Experience of some sort that had you in the role of victim? Absolutely. Because we live in a tapestry that still has been informed by a whole bunch of ignorance, yes? It does not, however, make you a spectator or make you a victim. It means you've had some experiences. It means you've had some behavior. You, however, are a divinely created, anointed, appointed life of the one. Stephen goes on to say, we can be directly involved in the making of ourselves and our world. Life's solutions lie in the minute particulars. I love that so much. Life's solutions, the global solutions, the universal solutions that you and I long for all of life, yes? Those solutions lie in the minute particulars. Guess who are the minute particulars? You and I. He goes on to say that daring to listen to the voice within your deepest original nature, and deeper still, the voice within the very earth. Daring to listen to that voice, daring to listen to the divine guidance that is always moving you for good. Daring to listen to that impulse of love rising in your being that's like, turn right, make the thing, let him go. It is always moving for good. It is always the solution that you are desiring, always. And that relationship to the inner voice in you and the inner voice of life itself, well, that's the sweet spot. And every single one of us, as the privileged, beloved threads in the tapestry of life, have access to those voices. Every single one of us. Now, we got some cleaning up to do, right? We got some noise to quiet down. We got some overlays, as Mark Nepo says, to peel away so we can see and hear more clearly. But ain't nothing to it but to do it. This is what it means to be a conscious shaper of change. And to recognize the belonging in that has always been true. You have never not belonged, even when you may have had the experience of being a victim, even when you've been othered. You have never not belonged. And you can dare to be a demonstration of your belonging. You can dare to live a life that is fully informed by your divine authority in the face of whatever has been handed down, happening out here. This is what it means to embrace that you are not alone. This is what it means to embrace the use of creative principle. Stephen also goes on to say, more and more individual people daring to create their own life and art are the solutions we are looking for. More and more people who dare to create from that deep inner voice, from the very voice of the earth herself, Changes the game entirely. And now I get to tell you how to listen. So any of you out there like, but how do I do that? How do I actually listen to my inner voice? How do I turn my attention away from all the noise, all the inherited crap, all the othering and divisiveness and separation and polarization? How do I turn away? What do you think I'm going to say? Anybody who knows me well? Meditation! That's exactly what I'm going to say. But I want to give you another lens into why I'm asking you to sit still. Dr. Sayadullah from Radical Dharma says, we sit to practice being with ourselves so we can better sit, love, and live with those who will show up and help us along the way. We sit so that we can get in relationship with our true nature. We sit so we can quiet down some of the noise out there and in here, because I am not going to make any promises that you're going to sit in lotus position and all things will be well. Not at all how it works. It sucks sometimes. You're going to just have so much noise going on in here. It feels like you are being tortured from the inside. And there's still a deep inner voice beneath all that noise for you to find. And as you do, like Dr. Yasmin says, you can better sit, love, and live with those who will show up and help you along the way. That you will help along the way because you sat. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do this week is I want you to sit with an untruth. I see some nodding yeses. Yes. My beloveds online, your homework, we will sit, you and I will sit in an untruth, or maybe multiple untruths. But here's what I want you to do. That's such a simple way to begin changing your vibrational frequency, changing the motion of the thread that you weave in this tapestry of life, is to sit with the untruth and then to begin to contemplate its opposite. So send some out so we can practice together. What's an untruth somebody might sit with this week? Shout it out. Allow yourself to share. Wrong definition of love. So, what's the opposite of that truth? The real definition of love. So that's your meditation homework. Now that I've identified this mistruth running around in my consciousness, I'm going to sit with what may likely be the truth, which is often just the opposite. And you're going to sit with it. You're going to try it on. You're going to contemplate it. You're going to consider, what would it mean if that was true? But here is the trick that Tanley brought forward. When I go to sit in meditation, my brain just takes these things and it makes me miserable and won't shut up and says all the things. The trick to meditation is not to make your brain stop. Brains are not meant to stop. The trick to meditation is to stop paying attention to what your brain is doing and continue to bring your attention back to the truth. And it's a practice well worth doing. So as we close today, I want you to remember that you're going to go sit in that practice, which is probably going to be uncomfortable and maybe even unpleasant, but you're going to do it because you are a critical, valuable, divinely appointed thread in the fabric of the one life. That's why you do it. You in? All right, I'm going to come down here and pray. So what I know that I know is there is one life. And that life is God's life, is the divine life, is the absolute good life that is ever looking for its way into manifest reality through you and I, through all of its divine appointments in this animated universe. And because that is true, I know that you and I are here on purpose, are uniquely shaped and created to be the way that the divine allows more and more and more and more good, love, joy to shape itself into the experience of every human being, creature, and piece of life on this planet. That is always what's going on. And I know that you and I make a holy sacred yes right here and right now to consciously engage and participate in this shaping. And that we do it with the knowing that we are always in belonging to one another. We do it with the intention to be a beneficial presence for the beloveds in our circles. We do it with the intention to know that because I consciously weave, I am changing the future for good. That is how powerful you and I are. That is how good God is. And I am so grateful for it. And so I just allow that to continue to blossom and move and expand and shape more beautifully and more lovingly than it ever has been. Anchor this truth with me in prayer by saying amen, ashe, aho, and so it is.
So it is.